Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone just disappear? Not in a dramatic way, no big fight, no tearful goodbye. They just quietly stopped showing up, stopped answering. And from the outside, people called them cold, distant, maybe even cruel. But here's what nobody talks about. The people who go silent, who cut everyone off without explanation, they're not the villains of the story. More often than not, they're the ones who felt everything the most. And today, we're going to talk about why. Here's something most people don't realize. Cutting people off is rarely a decision made in anger. It's not impulsive, it's not petty. It's actually the opposite. It's your nervous system finally drawing a line that your mouth was too afraid to draw. Think about it this way. Your body keeps score. Long before your mind consciously processes betrayal, exhaustion, or disrespect, your nervous system has already logged it. Researchers in the field of psychophysiology have found that repeated emotional stress creates what's called a threat memory, a kind of invisible catalog your brain builds over time. Every broken promise, every one-sided conversation, every time you gave and got nothing back, your body was taking notes. So when someone who seems to have it all together suddenly goes silent, that silence isn't weakness. It's the conclusion of a very long, very quiet internal process. They didn't snap, they graduated. Now here's the part that surprises most people. The ones who cut everyone off, they were almost always the most emotionally generous people in the room. They were the ones who answered texts at midnight, the ones who showed up when nobody asked, the ones who held space for everyone else's pain while quietly folding their own away. Psychologists call this a pattern of anxious giving, where a person overextends themselves in relationships, not because they're naive, but because they genuinely believe that if they love hard enough, show up consistently enough, the relationship will eventually become equal. And for a long time, they hold on to that belief, even when the evidence says otherwise. But strength, real strength, isn't about endurance, it's about recognition. The moment a person stops waiting to be chosen and starts choosing themselves, that is one of the most quietly powerful things a human being can do. And yes, from the outside, it looks like disappearing, but from the inside, it feels like finally breathing. People often confuse cutting someone off with building a wall, but there's a subtle and really important difference. Walls say, "I'm scared of you." Boundaries say, "I know exactly what I'm worth." One comes from fear, the other comes from clarity. The strongest people who go quiet aren't hiding, they're not bitter. They've simply reached a level of self-awareness where they understand that not every relationship deserves a seat at the table of their life. And that isn't cruelty, that's curation. There's actually research from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest studies ever conducted on human happiness, that consistently found that the quality of our relationships, not the quantity, is the single greatest predictor of well-being and longevity. The people who thrive aren't the ones with the biggest social circle. They're the ones with the most honest one. From the outside, someone who's cut everyone off can look lonely, isolated, like something went wrong. But spend even a little time inside that experience and you'll find something unexpected: peace, a kind of stillness that's hard to describe until you felt it. Neuroscientists studying the default mode network, the part of your brain active during rest and self-reflection, have found that solitude, chosen solitude, actually enhances emotional regulation, creativity, and self-understanding. The noise of unworthy relationships doesn't just drain your time, it literally interrupts your brain's ability to process who you are. So when someone goes quiet, when they stop performing connection and start protecting it, they're not retreating from life, they're returning to themselves. Here's what I want you to walk away with. If you've ever cut someone off and felt guilty for it, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. Did you make that choice out of anger or out of exhaustion? because there's a difference. Anger cuts to punish. Exhaustion cuts to survive. And if it was exhaustion, if you simply ran out of room to keep absorbing what someone else couldn't carry for themselves, that's not a character flaw. That's your nervous system protecting the last quiet corner of your dignity. The strongest people don't always make the most noise. Sometimes strength sounds like silence. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply stop explaining yourself to people who were never really listening. If this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself somewhere in these words, drop a comment below. Tell me, was it strength or exhaustion that made you go quiet? Because I think more people than we realize are carrying this silently, and they deserve to know they're not alone.